African Americans were playing and winning at organized soccer during Jim Crow, and I can bet you've never heard a single name. We know that during that era, mainstream historians weren't documenting Black life with much care or intention. What got recorded was filtered through newspapers and institutions that had little interest in preserving what Black Americans were building, so most of it just disappeared. The reason we know about Oliver and Fred Watson at all is because two historians went looking during the pandemic and stumbled across a photograph and some old newspaper clippings by accident. That's how close this history came to being lost forever, but it doesn't stop there. There's a photograph taken in Central Park around 1915, two soccer teams on a field in the middle of New York City, and when you zoom in, one of those teams appears to include Black players. Now, the museum that holds it can't say for certain, and we may never know. So little was documented about Black soccer clubs in New York that even the images we do have raise more questions than they answer. Regardless of who's in it though, it asks us to reconsider what was actually happening on those fields. Because we know from Oliver and Fred that Black Americans were playing organized soccer in this country as far back as 1894. So the question isn't whether they existed, it's what it meant that they were there, on the same field, in the same league, potentially in the same photograph. If you ask me, the field is constantly telling a different story than the rest of the country. But the field couldn't be rewritten the same way history could. When Oliver scored that first goal in 1894, it happened. When Fred's teammates held a benefit match covering his wages after he broke his leg, that happened. When those two brothers won a league championship during one of the most hostile periods in American history, that happened. I keep making these videos because every gap in the record points to something that was real, that was built, and that belonged to people who deserve to be remembered. History doesn't disappear because it wasn't there, it disappears because nobody thought it was worth keeping. And we get to decide if that's still true.